But let's get into the main event that we're looking forward to coming up this weekend. Going to be screaming from the stands like a teenage girl at a Backstreet Boys concert in 1999. Canelo Alvarez, Terence Crawford. Crawford going up, seeking greatness, wanting to get another of the undisputed weight classes under his belt, foregoing anything whatsoever at middleweight to make this happen. Canelo wanting to shut him up, thinking, "Oh, I'm easy pickings. You don't know what you're looking at here." It's Canelo has seemed a little bit disinterested lately. His wins haven't been as impressive necessarily. I guess because if I was going to make an argument on why, and I'm not saying who wins or loses at this point in time, but for people who might say that it's not competitive, which isn't the books are reasonably tight on this, which might shock some people. But if I was going to make an argument on this one, I would kind of put it on three things of why a Crawford could beat potentially a Canelo, and in one, it's hard to identify Canelo's best victory because his victories over the best opponents who were in their prime were oftentimes close and controversial. There was Arislandi Lara, 10 years ago. That was Golovkin in the first fight. Austin Trout was a close one for him. He was down on the cards before he stopped Kovalev, and obviously lost to Bivol. And a lot of times people struggle to say what is his best victory, clean victory, and that might be Miguel Cotto at the end of the day. And another reason is Canelo has seemed a little bit disinterested. You look at his recent performances, and he hasn't been racking up the stoppages like he used to. And then you see Hamza Shiraz just absolutely wreck Edgar Berlanga inside of 4 rounds. So when you consider those factors and just the fact of the pedigree of Terence Crawford, it doesn't seem outlandish that he could win. I mean, I'm not saying Crawford is prime right now, but I don't think Canelo is prime either. And I think there's a lot of evidence for that. What are your thoughts? If you had to say one was nearer their best than the other, who might it be? Des.
Oh, sorry, mate. I didn't think you was talking to me. Sorry, mate. I know what you're getting at with Canelo. Um, in answer to your question, I think Crawford is closer to his best, but we could be missing something here. And would it be fair to say, look, when we compare Canelo with 3 or 4 or 5 of the other top Mexicans of the last 50 years, he's in that conversation, but he's probably the bottom end of that conversation because his resume doesn't really stack up, primarily because the guys he's fought have gone over very easily, and he's never beat a best in a division. That does go against him. It does hurt him resume-wise. But is there an argument to be had that Charlo was credible and Canelo cancelled him out? Munguia was credible, 43-0. Canelo cancelled him out. Billy Joe and Caleb Plant were credible. Callum Smith was credible. I mean, these are all unbeaten guys. So is Callum Smith a bit of an Inoue? Is Canelo a bit of an Inoue? Is he cancelling these good fighters out because he's so strong, he's so alpha, he knows how to press, and he scares the life out of these kids inside 3 rounds, and they go into a shell or quit on their stall? Do we not give Canelo enough credit? It's a question I'm asking you and the guys for the results he's had and the guys he's beaten.
I rate Canelo quite highly, but I think when you're looking at his resume and what he's done, like yeah, he has just made Charlo just give up after dropping him once, and it really did seem like Charlo was there for the payday at the end of the day.
He chucked
Uh,
it. He chucked it.
yeah,
Yeah, he chucked it.
he dropped Munguia, and Munguia quit. He didn't quit trying, but he was basically kind of figured out at that point in time, right? What do they have in common? They're both former 154-pound fighters, right? And that's something to remember. Like Munguia had been a bit of a weight bully. Berlanga got absolutely demolished by Shiraz 2 fights after he faced Canelo. And but I think when you look at it, like you kind of have to look at Canelo in two ways. You have PB and you have AB. And I'm not talking Adrian Broner. I'm talking pre-Bivol. I'm talking after Bivol. I think that they're a different fighter. And I think like Canelo is still very good. I mean, he's still one of the best of his generation. But Bivol took something from him that night. He didn't give him a physical beating. He gave him a confidence beating.
What are you asking me?
No, I think we have to put a bit of respect on fucking Canelo's name about his resume. By the way, like fucking all right. There's times where he probably should have got a stoppage where he very, very, very far back. You're talking about like Matthew Hatton, Ryan Rhodes, these guys. He should have stopped them early, but he was only a kid, fucking learning on the job. He was only like 19, 20. Josecito Lopez and those guys were too small for him, but that was because Victor Ortiz had broken his jaw, hadn't he? So that's how Josecito got that fight. He took on Austin Trout when nobody wanted a piece of Austin Trout. Tight fight with him, but rightful winner. Then went in with Floyd, completely out of his depth, outboxed, but weight drained as well. Angulo probably finished. Fucking James Kirkland, these guys probably finished, but beating him emphatically, beat the living shit out of Alfredo Angulo, and a lot of people thought that was a pick 'em fight at the time it was made, and Canelo absolutely lit him up. James Kirkland knocked him kicking.
That was a
The Khan
nasty
fight was a bit of a
knockout.
joke.
That Kirkland knockout was fucking gross, man. He almost knocked his head into the front row.
I think what it comes down to with Canelo is that Golovkin was such a beloved character, and he ducked Golovkin for a very long time. Stayed around 54, said he was never a middleweight and all that. Like
And
all of
defended
them,
his
Sergio
titles at
Martinez and those guys.
155. Don't forget about that.
Yeah,
And just
and
defended
started
it at
he's
155.
well, that's his business too. It's not like people always attribute that. Oh, Canelo fought. That's his fucking. That's Reynoso and Golden Boy and all those guys. That's not necessarily Canelo making those decisions of what weight he's going to have. But again, the knock-on effect, the perception is reality. And a lot of people kind of turned on him at the Mexican meat scandal, the hair sample, the ban, the Golovkin thing. And he didn't win the first Golovkin fight, right? And he got a draw, and that really pissed people off because people said he should have held that out. I thought he beat Golovkin in fair and square in the second fight. And from then on, like his career at 68, there's not a close fight that he had at 68. He's gone up and got beaten old man Kovalev, obviously, but he fucking knocked him out all the same. Like Danny Jacobs, he beat Rocky Fielding, Callum Smith, destroyed these guys, Yildirim. The Billy Joe Saunders and Caleb Plant wins are two very good wins, and are recent
They're
enough.
good
Like,
wins. Yeah, they're good wins.
That was,
you
I
know,
will argue, that was the best version of Canelo. Was the guy who fought those dudes back to back.
and
Honestly,
he was fighting the best version of Billy Joe, by the way, that night. He was in tremendous shape. He'd never been beaten, and he was giving Canelo a close fight. Like that was nip and tuck. Billy Joe Saunders was coming on the middle round. He was making a miss, swing for the fucking fences, and he found that shot and ended it with one punch, and then they call it off in the corner when Billy Joe's eye swelled up and that and then beat Caleb Plant as well, who was giving people hell. So and he beat him easily. Like so, he's never had a fucking close fight. I don't think at 68. That's one thing to take into consideration. I think he deserves respect for that because the Bibble fight is at fucking 75, and he is a small guy. Like he's fucking.
he
started
has
his
had a
career
close fight at 68. That skull fight was fucking close,
up
and
until then.
I refuse.
That's what I'm getting to. That's what I'm
Yeah,
getting to. So what I'm saying all that to say this is I think Canelo deserves on his resume. I think he deserves a massive amount. I don't think there's
He
anybody
does.
you could say he ducked up until Benavidez. I think he would have. Yes, they match made him pretty well, and he was the A side. He commanded a lot of bread, by the way. He's the biggest fucking name in boxing outside of Anthony Joshua on that we're familiar with on this side of the planet. Canelo's the biggest fucking star in the sport for the last while since Floyd and Manny left. Like it's been Canelo, it's been the Canelo show. Like 2 fights a year
And
for Mexican holidays.
also as well, Rob, win. You can win, but also it's how you win. And an unbeaten Callum Smith, and an unbeaten Billy Joe, and unbeaten Plant, he kicked the shit out of them three.
Mhm.
He kicked the shit out of John Ryder, and he scared the
Unbeaten
living daylights
Berlanga.
out of Charlo. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like
Yeah, and I know it was the small Charlo or whatever,
he
but
but he went to work on them guys, and I
and it
remember he
wasn't
come on
like
this pod and
Bivol
saying how
beat him, but
alpha he was.
Bivol beat him, but he didn't stop him or anything. He's 175 pound, 175 pounder, not known as a massive puncher, by the way. Bivol, a lot of
And
state taxes and Bivol by decision, but
Let's not forget Bivol just beaten Baturbiev, who's phenomenal. You know what I mean?
exactly.
Like
So,
Bivol's a top man. Don't worry about that.
and this is say this is the past prime. I think prime Canelo was the 168 run. I think he had like 4 fights against guys you'd expect him to be Fielding, Jacobs, Kovalev, Smith, but like he's active, he's out the whole time. Like, um, and I think his resume commands a lot of respect. And I think him as a fighter, aside from I think the only thing that sours him is that failed road test. But look, they're fucking all on it. And by the way, Terence Crawford's on the snack program, so that's just using the shit that's not on the list, but it's still using something in it, looking to fucking size him. Like so, um, saying all that to say this, I thought in the Williams Skull fight, who was another undefeated fighter, by the way, that Canelo's taken on. Uh, I thought he looked plodding. I thought he looked slow. So what does that look like? I have no idea in my mind what Bud Crawford looks like at 168 because I didn't think he looked. I think I'm saying I didn't think he looked good at 54. He was good in that Madrimov fight, and he still won it. I thought, but that was the first time I ever thought that there's some jeopardy here for Crawford. The first time I ever thought that since watching him come up from lightweight.
To be fair, Rob, both you and I said that we thought it was going to be a close fight, and it probably went decision. We both predicted that it was going to be there just because of
Correct.
what Madrimov brought to the table. But whatever
Matty,
Crawford, whatever Crawford brought to the table also held Madrimov to less than 300 punches. I think like that's very worthy in that conversation.
I'm with you, but what does that translate to?
Hold on, let Rob finish.
2 weight classes up. Sorry, what does that translate to? 2 weight classes up. So that was the first time, as I said, that look, he had some jeopardy, and yes, it was a chess match, wasn't a shootout. The two of them were very economic with the work, and Crawford did what he had to do to win the fight. Can he do that against Canelo? Against this version of Canelo, I think he can, but I have no idea what he looks like at 68 and what he takes a shot like at 68. The only thing I'd say is, I think the fight's won off both of their feet, and I think Canelo's feet are slightly gone. I think he looks so one-paced and sluggish against Skull that I think that Crawford will just be sharper in the exchange and keep it at mid-distance, and I think he's very, very strong as well.
As long as he can hold the punch, right? Like that's
it's going to be, can he hold the punch?
He will get touched.
And can Canelo? He will, but can Canelo pull it? Canelo in his early career, like you said, there's the 2 careers, right? And I'd say there's even the 2 careers. There's him 155 and south of that, and then there's him middleweight to 68 and 75 and or 68 and above. But I think always what you've had with Canelo is in mid distance, very, very sharp counter punching, very sharp. He's not a one punch KO artist necessarily, but why he has something. He has enough to break fellas down and stop him, and he has enough to keep fellas off him. And he's been always very sharp in that danger zone. So when they're leveraging for position, I don't really see Crawford being there. I know many people
that's where he likes to do his business, which is an interesting thing to say. I don't know.
So what I'm saying is when they're kind of fencing for position, I think by the time the shot comes from Canelo, Crawford's going to be out of there. Not saying, I know, like I said, earlier in his career, a lot of people compared him to Sweet Pea. I never got that. Like I always thought he was more comparable to a Hagler, switch hitter, mean, menacing, whole center of the ring, will walk it down.
That was harder to see until he got to 140, and I will contend, like people, Gamboa rattled him at 135. I'm like, yeah, I think he probably rattled a weight drained fighter at 135 who started blasting people as he moved up the weight and got his legs under him. But
yeah, and that's a lot of that. Like everyone's a revisionist, aren't they?
Before we go back to Gamboa, we've got to hold guy to the same standard. Like if we can say the way Canelo dealt with Berlanga, um, and then we see the way Shiraz dealt with Berlanga, we've got to hold Crawford to the same standard because the way he boxed Madrimov, it's a red flag when you consider the way Ortiz boxed Madrimov in the next fight. Crawford struggled with the size and that
Good shout.
intricate movement of Madrimov at 54. So, and then we thought Madrimov might be this monster, but then we saw Ortiz get a hold of him. So, if we've got to hold guys to the same standard. Yes, I thought,
yeah. There was some
you know what I'm
there's
saying?
something to be said for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't want to make excuses necessarily for that. And it's they're kind of different styles of fighters though, in the sense like. Or Ortiz is that kind of hands high, work you forward behind a jab kind of fighter, whereas Crawford is a chameleon in so many ways. He's a very reactive fighter, and what he ran into with Madrimov is they're both very reactive fighters. Whereas, so Ortiz said, okay, like, yeah, he's looking for reaction. I'm just going to keep throwing, and it took him a while to figure that out, and then he started to walk him down, land his combinations. Whereas Crawford and Madrimov kept like trying to kind of wait for that. And Crawford just, got a little bit better of it through and through. But Madrimov, I would say, is quicker and more reactive than Canelo at this point in time.
Yeah,
but I
I
think
see that, but he's
I
not
think the
bigger than
Gamboa
Canelo.
one was good. I think the Gamboa comparison was you was going to talk about Gamboa, and I think that's an interesting one because that's probably when we had to see Crawford with his best feet against Gamboa, who had a herky jerky style, who had quick hands, but Crawford completely negated Gamboa, although a long time ago. So
He got
can
clipped. I
Crawford?
think all the boxing revisionists go back to that when he got clipped, but you can go back like that's fucking 5 years ago or something. Like you can go back to see Cotto get rocked against or fucking Canelo get rocked against Cotto's older brother on his HBO debut. If you go back far enough, like fighters
Yeah,
get clipped. Like I don't think there's too much to read into that, but I don't know.
yes, I agree.
It's the size is the thing is the most intriguing part for me because what does Crawford look like holding a shot at from a 68 pounder? You know what I mean?
Well, Rob, what if I said this to you? Maybe Crawford's one of these guys who's just like he's so analytical in everything he does. So maybe the Porter fight, the Sean Porter fight, was Bud's blueprint on how to get the Spence fight over. So maybe Porter was Bud's opportunity to see how we can really beat Spence, and maybe the Madrimov fight is opportunity to see how he beats Canelo. I thought Crawford was very close with Porter, but he put his foot down at the end. But against
Mm.
Spence, he was flawless. Will we see the same comparison with Madrimov and Canelo?
What's interesting, very interesting that you bring Spence's name back into it because the plan for PBC was, if you remember when Canelo had his time with PBC and Al Heyman, the plan was for Spence to win that Crawford fight and then go and fight Canelo for the sweepstakes. Like, and I think
Yeah.
Crawford took that personally, like, because Spence was naturally bigger, wasn't he? He was the one. He was going to 154 anyway, and it wasn't too much for him to. They used to say that Spence could have fucking fought at 168 if he wanted to. I saw some
Rob,
footage of Spence
boxing,
back in action this week. Didn't look great, by the way. So I hope he's all right. Like,
Rob, boxing heads all over the world. People that you really respect said, "There's no way Bud can beat Spence. Spence is just too big and too good."
mm,
But
mm.
that got it's hard to imagine that now, isn't it?
Apart from us on the asylum, predicted this emphatic stoppage. Anyway, it's I don't know. It's one of these fights where I'm glad for the two of them because I think Canelo deserves a lot of credit for the way he carried the sport after Floyd and Manny exited it, especially on stateside and Mexican fans and everything. He definitely made all the fights that he could make. Apart from this Benavidez one, really, is there anyone that you could say that he ducked post Golovkin? I don't think so. Like I think he took on all comers. I think he cleaned out the 68 division quite easily. Could have done it in his sleep. Like so, I think he's an elite athlete, an elite boxer. Probably came at an era where he didn't get a chance to prove his greatness. But like I said, I tell you, legit beat Golovkin in the second fight, and he held shots from Golovkin as well. By the way, a lot of people thought Golovkin was going to knock Canelo out, and he's got some beard. That's another factor in the fight. Two of them can't hold a shot. We're talking going back 10, 11 years to see times where they're rocked. and Kavalauskas might have hurt Crawford momentarily. Um, but who's really hurt Canelo or rocked him in his career where you're thinking about stop? A lot of people keep saying Bud Crawford with the stoppage. And like, what does that look like? Because Canelo's shown his beard time and time again. So you got to think if it goes to a decision, maybe Canelo will get the decision no matter what the fight looks like. So I don't know. I think there's different stages we can break down. I don't. I'm just talking about my initial stages. I was thinking I'm just recapping that both of these deserve their shot. They've been everything good about the sport. Crawford fucking has been absolute joy to watch as a boxing purist. Like he fucking does everything. He's got the mean streak. He's a finisher. He's cleaned out divisions. He calls people out. He wants big fights. He's fucking not ducking anybody. He made a couple of promotional bad decisions, but to see him now after everything that he went through at the top of the game on a Netflix promotion, there's a lot of this stuff is fucking out at like out consumer tat like these Jake Paul fights on Netflix and that and they're horrible and the Katie Taylor on Netflix. It's just you're looking at these fights like and they're but these are the two guys that have carried the sport basically for 10 years plus. They're now getting an opportunity on the biggest platform to get a massive payday and a send off, a retirement party for both of them. So the romantic fucking boxing fan of me is happy for the two of them. I still don't really know what the fucking fight looks like when the two of them get in the ring. I really don't know.
Yeah, it's but Canelo has been there before is the thing. Like he's gotten these huge paydays before him, and Crawford is finally kind of getting into some of this money, but it's too late in his life to have
That's
like
a really good point.
what Canelo has done.
That's a really good point. You could argue that Canelo has been in the biggest fight in the world that year many times in his career. Both fights with Golovkin, the fight with Floyd.
Cotto.
Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, he's
Cotto
been
was a
over
big.
the fucking course, hasn't he? Like, they have big pay-per-view events. Like, Crawford's really only had this big Spence rollout, and that's been it. Like, other than that, they've been not that they haven't been big fights, but you know what I mean? A couple of hometown fights and that as well. It's not the same level of big fight experience. Like,
Yeah, but the thing about Crawford too is the fact that he was avoided for so long, and he had to force these fights to happen. Like Arum could have made Crawford against Pacquiao anytime he wanted to. He knew how that fight ended, and honestly, Freddie Roach didn't want any of it either. They could have gone across the aisle with these incredible welterweights that they had at the time and matched them all up and between Top Rank and PBC, but they chose not to. And PBC did everything they could to try to derail Terence Crawford. It's a shame rather than letting the star shine and do his thing. Everybody kind of did and went somewhere or another seemed like they conspired to hold him back out of fear of losing their cash cows and things like that. And I always go back to, after he knocked out Spence and the conversation I had with, with the judges and referees when we were afterwards, when they were having a drink. And there are just not only some stylistic things and stuff like that, but in the way that they were forced to fight, go looking for the knockouts because they knew they needed them to get noticed, to get the victories, to not get screwed. Terence Crawford and Marvin Hagler have incredible parallels between each other. I'm just saying, and you can only keep them out so long. And is this going to be his Ray Leonard fight? I don't know. Justin, you've been awfully quiet.
No, I'm just listening.
No, you're fine. Go ahead, get your say in. I mean, you can enter on any point here.
I'm still dealing with the guy in the backyard, so I'm just listening. I'm letting y'all talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went over and helped him for a second. I don't think I missed anything.
Yeah. So I don't know. We've kind of worked our way through, and no one's made an exact prediction yet. I don't know. What are some things you're looking at for Canelo versus Crawford?
Well, I think I heard the end of it. I think Rob said something about people are going for the knockout, and he's not going to knock Canelo out. That's just never going to happen. Crawford has never had that elite power anyway, like where he's just going to go in there and blast some guy in the first or second round. So he's not going to.
I don't know about that, man.
I don't think he might have power, but not enough. You're not knocking Canelo out. Look at who Canelo is.
I don't think he's knocking him out either, but like for the string of knockout victories that he had was impressive. Like just
I'm gonna go with the Steve Wellings comment. Who was he knocking out? because Steve always wrote him about his opponents.
Oh yeah. Then the Wellings curse kicked in that one
Exactly.
night in July.
if I'll make a prediction now. I've never wavered from this prediction when they were just discussing the fight. I still believe Terence Crawford wins the decision. Now, I'm 99% sure that Canelo is going to get it, but I believe though that Crawford is better. I think Crawford's better. I think he's more skilled. I think he does everything a little bit better than Canelo does. I don't think Canelo. This is not the same Canelo from years ago. Y'all were going through all his older fights and everything. That's great. I mean, that's great, but this is not the same guy. This is Canelo. This is the William Skull Canelo. This is who we have now. We don't have all those fights versus Billy Joe were all great wins and good things, but this is not the same man at all anymore. This is a different beast. I think he just doesn't have the same. I don't know if I don't think the fire is there as it was. I think Crawford is hungrier. I think he's got more dog in him than Canelo does at this point in his career. I think Crawford. God, this is not the best. I guess the best way I can put it. I think Crawford cares more as far as Crawford knows this is it. Canelo's not a legacy. He's already built what he had to build. He's done with that. If he loses this fight, okay, people will be, is it going to crush Canelo's legacy? No, it's not going to crush it. People would die for him. Crawford has all the fire on his side. He has everything, and I think that's the way Crawford is. I think that's going to fuel him. I think he feeds off of that, and so I think Crawford. The way we could talk about what's he going to look at the weight. I have no issue. I think Crawford is going to hit this exactly right. Maybe the snack will help. Maybe have some extra snack. I don't know.
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah, exactly.
Fires all over the place.
Yeah, he should be sucking it down because obviously we've seen recently. You can fail a test. Nobody gives a shit. They don't care anymore. You're still going to fight. Nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, that Munguia shit.
Munguia, the guy, Katiev, I mean, they don't give a fuck anymore if you fail or not. They're still going to go with it. So you might as well.
You could just get like ChatGPT to write you like a 40-page dossier to say that you're innocent, and you could fucking send that in like a grand. You'll be fighting again in fucking 2 or 3 weeks.
I just think Crawford is going to be a different animal. I just think he's a different mentality than anybody that Canelo's ever fought. I don't think Canelo, yes, he's fought some great guys, but fuck it. You think Billy Joe and all these other guys are going to have the same kind of fight and mentality that a Crawford's going to have on the biggest stage of his life? Crawford's going to win this fight. I don't know how he's not going to knock him out, but Crawford, in my opinion, is going to win this fight. He's going to find some way to beat Canelo.
The only fighters with the ring IQ around the level of Terence Crawford that Canelo has fought before in his career is Floyd Mayweather and Dimitri Bivol. I mean, you might be saying, well, those are exceptional circumstances. Well, yes, and I'm making the argument that Terence Crawford is an exceptional fighter. I've made that argument for years. I don't know.
Well, listen, you're talking to the fucking president of the Terence Crawford fan club here. Like, we're fucking old school Terence Crawford fans on the asylum. We remember fucking Ricky Barnes. You know what I mean? We go back as far as Dog Bay and these characters. Like, everyone was rooting for him at welterweight. We remember when he beat Jeff Horn like a fucking heavy bag. Like, so I think we've always advocated for Bud Crawford just because he's so fucking good. And he's got the fucking mean streak too to him, hasn't he? Like, what I'd say is that he's looked supremely confident in the build-up. Not that means anything, but part of my prediction as to who I thought would win the Crawford-Spence fight came from their ES News showdown. Do you remember that one?
I don't know.
It was like about 5 years ago, and Spence and Crawford were like backstage at some fight, and Crawford ran down on him. I think he had like a fucking beanie on him, and he was going to Spence like, You're fat. Like, he was pointing at his stomach. He was pointing at small margins. And he was telling him he was going to stop him. He's like, you can bet $1 million. I'm not going. And Spence was like, on God, you're not stopping me. And he was like, oh, you can bet whatever you like. And you could see in his face, he knew he was going to win that fight no matter what the fuck it was. And that was what kind of made me a believer, because initially I would have thought Spence was just weight-wise too big for him. But when he grew into welterweight, you could see his timing and everything was he was going to be too sharp for Spence, and obviously, events outside the ring definitely helped deprecate what Spence used to be. But there was just no way for me that Crawford was going to lose to an Errol Spence with that mentality. That the difference between their mentalities was night and day. And I'm not saying that Canelo has a different mentality than Crawford. I think obviously mentality plays a massive part in his success as well, his determination, his mentality. But Crawford looks so comfortable throughout the whole build up. You gotta feel like he feels like this is his time to shine, don't you? Like,
He's one of those guys that's not going to waste his moment, you know. And I'm not saying he could lose his fight. It could be very close. Like, I get the hunch that one or both of these fighters will leave this fight and not be able to say they've never been knocked down before in a fight. Like, I think
interesting.
I think it's for one or both, and maybe it decides the fight ultimately, or maybe it gives them an argument to give it to Canelo or something. But skills matter. And Des, I'll tell you what, something that I like. Yes, weight class boxing. I argue this more than anybody else. Weight class boxing is different than heavyweight boxing. But as we watch Usyk with all of his skills, beating guys who outweigh him by 30, 40, 50 pounds, and doing it with relative ease, to think that Terence Crawford can't move up, 14 pounds, or heck, let's go ahead and call it 20, and call it from welterweight. I think it's crazy. Like, skills absolutely matter. And yeah, there is a limit with size and things like that, but it takes a lot, and especially coupled with a great ring IQ.
The only thing I'd say to counter that, Matty, is Usyk is beating up Dubois, Fury, AJ, Derek Chisora, and the type. And them guys are not in anyone's top 5 heavyweights of all time. Canelo is going through the card and he's beating up guys, and Canelo would be described as a top 5 Mexican of all time. And that's what you're asking Bud to jump up and beat. So I just think what we're asking Bud to do here is a really big ask, because Canelo is that good. Now, we're all fans of Bud Crawford, and of the two kids, Bud's trajectory is probably slightly higher at the moment. And we can't overlook Bud's career. And there's things that we talk about Canelo's resume, and it might be a little bit underwhelming, but we've also made the point tonight that maybe Canelo made them guys look bad, because a lot of them guys, most of them guys, were top 1 and 2 and 3 in the division, unbeaten, and we've never seen them have the shit kicked out of them like we saw when they fought Canelo that night. I'm talking about Callum Smith or Billy Joe or Charlo or Plant or Munguia or John Ryder. Canelo heavy bagged them guys. He beat the snot out of all of them. And we never see that before. So maybe Canelo's brilliance, like an Inoue, similar to an Usyk, he makes these guys look very, very ordinary, and that downplays his achievements over his career. But those fights, I remember watching them. I remember coming on the Asylum on the Sunday after the Saturday, and I couldn't believe how alpha Canelo was. I couldn't believe how in control he was. I couldn't believe how he knew how to press, shuffle people around, almost Beterbiev-like, and let his hands go, and know how to look after himself in the mixer the way he does, jumping up 2, 3, and 4 weights. So I'm a massive Bud Crawford fan. We all are. But this is a real hard one, because you've got 2 generational greats. And the fights Crawford's had in his career, whether it's Ndongo or Jeff Horn, Victor Postel, coming to Scotland to beat Ricky Burns, and Bud talks about that night and how hard that fight was for him. Guys like Kell Brook, Amir Khan, who we kind of think, well, he was meant to beat them. Of course he was, but it's the way he beat them.
He smacked him out of there. They got him the fuck out of there as soon as he could.
Yeah. And the way he beat monsters like Sean Porter, Errol Spence. This to me, I think Rob said it. I don't know how this is going to go. Like, I'm just lucky we've got it, because this is as close you're going to get as a Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns. It's that type of fight. I don't know how it's going to play out.
In a way, you have to. I think people are leaning towards Bud Crawford a lot because a lot of us were fucking like, massively happy when he beat Spence and he got his vindication. And it was like, and the manner he did it in, it was like, there's no disputing now. This guy's the fucking real deal. He's the best in the sport. Him and Usyk, number 1 and 2. But Canelo's been number 1 and 2 for like 10 years. You know that way. So it's like fucking a lot of people kind of, because Crawford called for this fight, like, and he was like, "What's next for me? I finally reached the mountaintop. Like, now I need to go out, challenge myself. I need to go after the big dog, like the payday. I missed out on Pacquiao. I'm getting Canelo now, like." So I think both of them ultimately win. We win as a sport because on Netflix, if you're watching Canelo and Crawford, there's probably no two better fighters you want to see on a big spectacle like that are going to bring kids in for the future. Again, I don't know what it looks like, dude. I don't know what it looks like. If Canelo comes out with the
No.
feet that he had in Williams Skull, I think Crawford has a great chance of winning. But if Canelo has anything left and he's able to land, I just think the feet, I think the speed of foot is going to be the key to winning the fight, because I don't think Canelo rather has that sharpness that he had even 2-3 years ago. I just don't think it's there. Off the evidence of the Williams Skull fight, who's not a bad fighter, by the way, he's going to give a lot of fellas a tough night. But William Skull 3 years ago, you'd expect fucking Canelo to walk through him, like.
I
And he
do
didn't. So
feel
what is that? Crawford's
Rob.
38-2. You know what I mean? He's 38-2,
I,
and
I
he's up fucking 28 pounds of muscle, like, from fucking his best
Rob,
weight. You know what I mean?
I do feel that Canelo has gone from fourth gear to third gear last couple of fights, Belanga and Skull, and that might be a reason why we're a little bit higher on Bud. But we have to remember as well, as much as I enjoyed the brilliance and the subtlety of the Madrimov fight, we can't have Bud. Like you said, that Canelo's feet have got to be better. Bud can't be as reactive against Canelo, because Canelo's that master of aphorisms. He's a master of pressing you and putting you into corners and getting his shots off. But
But again,
the Bud we've seen against a Gamboa, all the way up to Sean Porter, Errol Spence, Bud knows how to catch you coming in and on the way out as well. But
yeah.
he's got to be as proactive to do that. With you, I'm going to say it again. I don't know how this one's going to go. It's
But
really,
that's what I'm
really
saying.
a good
So
fight.
Canelo's not the type of fighter that plays into Bud's strengths, because he keeps it mid range, and he's the counter puncher at mid range. So he's not walking onto
Yeah.
anything, and he's shown that he can take a shot. So I just think it's going to be a lot of feinting. I think the fight's going to disappoint. Actually, I think it'll be a decision. And I think we will see a lot of standoffs because of where they both are. Like, you've got Crawford moving up. He's 38. He's carrying an extra stone in muscle. You've got Canelo 1 foot out of the sport. Didn't want the Benavidez fight. Has a big platform on Netflix. Was going to take the Jake Paul fight, by the way. So that tells you a lot as well. Like, so he could be completely dialed out, and it could be there for Crawford to shine. I think the difference is going to be in the exchange, and I just see Crawford being slightly sharper in those exchanges. And I think he's cute enough to stay out of distance and not get hit as well. And I don't think Canelo's speed, I don't think that the speed and power are gone. It's going to be if Canelo can get to him, isn't it? Like, and hurt him. Because if he can hurt him, then he has a chance. Other than that, I think it's going to be a snoozy 12-round Crawford decision.
It's supposed to be a small ring, so that might be a little bit tough. I don't know if it's going to be an 18, but I know it's not going to be a 22.
Matty, how do you see it?
I think I have a hard time with this one because obviously, Crawford's been one of my favorite fighters for a long time, and you have, whenever it's something like with a kind of an emotional feeling to it, like you don't want to, you get a little bit out of skew. But I just, like, I don't know, man. Sometimes you just have to believe that somebody is great and back their pursuit of greatness. And I think this fight comes down to a lot of intangibles. And Bud wants to be great. He wants to prove himself. as much as I think any fighter really ever has. It's a big deal for him. He's one of those guys that has the chip on his shoulder that no one's ever going to really understand, and he's just a different animal. And I'll tell you what, like I said, I think it's highly likely that him or Canelo gets dropped in this fight. Someone's getting dropped for the first time in their career, I feel. And if it's Bud, I don't think he's going to back off, go into reverse, and he's not going to be a dumbass like Berlanga where you can just chew him up. Bud's a different guy. He's going to get up and he's going to get back in there and he's going to clear his head and he's going to think his way through it. And I hope that everything's on the up and up. I'm pulling for a Crawford win because I just really want to believe in something right now that's just something special, and something amazing to watch and see. And I think it's Bud Crawford.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that from the sentimental point of view, right? Because as I said, I'm the chairman of the Bud Crawford fucking fan club, and I said after he beat Spence, does he beat Floyd? I don't know, but he's in the argument of fighters that could beat Floyd. Like, he's probably the fella that will give Floyd the most problems. But even Floyd in his pomp, who went up to 54 and started at 26 himself, people would have said we're out of his fucking right mind going up to try and fight Golovkin, although people were calling for it. He was never going to go up to 60, let alone 68, and fight someone and expect him to win. Can you see anyone around those divisions? Maybe there's fighters at 60 he could have beaten, but nobody would have fucking made him automatic favorite or something. I think people jump into that with Crawford because, like you said, we want him to go out like this. Like, he's been, he's gone. We don't need to recap his history. We know what it is here. He's got to the top of the mountain. He's going out with a fucking massive payday. Wouldn't this be the best send off for him? Canelo doesn't need this fight for his legacy. He's already set himself in stone. So the ideal result is a Crawford win. But Captain Casual makes a good point. He said that we're not outraged by the disparity in the weight class. And, like, he's right, because if it's Conor Benn versus Eubank, we're all fucking complaining, me more so than anybody. Like, but I think with this one, matchmaking makes and timing are important factors here, because Crawford's obviously had a long time to prepare to get up to the weight. The two of them are 38. It's probably both their last fight. It's the cash out and a big spectacle. God forbid something goes wrong on a platform this size. You don't like to think about those kind of things, but he does raise a good point.
But sometimes, guys, great fighters do great things. Like Duran jumped up from lightweight to middleweight. Sometimes great fighters do great things, and these two are great fighters. And it's just a great.
That's the flip side. You can go back to the old days, to throwbacks and that.
Like, why do we have to think that greatness is a thing of days gone by? Why is it okay for Henry Armstrong to be great, but not Terence Crawford?
Roy Jones and John Ruiz. Great fighters do great things.
And I think certainly in the case of Henry Armstrong, you're not looking at Henry Armstrong going up against the guy who has like fucking Diana ball or something in the system. You know that way? Taping up,
no.
Up late in the 40s, like, there was no.
They were on some sort of pharmaceutical that was great, but we can't get now, and it was totally legal.
Probably barbiturates or something fun. You know that way?
And also, what I would to say, to pick up on Damo's point, and I hope Damo's well, is we all knew that there was a bit of a bad smell around the Conor Benn and the Eubank thing. It didn't tell us anything. It was a cash grab. It wasn't nothing like what we're seeing with Canelo and Bud. And I'm with Mikey. When it was first announced, I'm not quite sure I wanted to see it.
I had to drag you guys into this one kicking and screaming, man.
You did. But as it's come round, as I'm seeing a lot more of it, as I'm understanding the transition from Bud stepping up, great fighters do great things, and every now and then a generation gets two greats coming together. We've been lucky to get this. So I actually think a smaller man wins this fight. I think Bud wins it, but it can go the other way, and I just can't see how it's going to play out. I don't know if Canelo's going to be assertive, proactive, get distance right, and catch Bud as he comes towards him, and then Bud's got to be reactive, and I don't think that works for Bud. But then how's Bud going to govern Canelo? But he's strong enough to do it, and I think he'll really strongly invest in his counter punching and his body punching. It's just so intriguing, this fight. And it's not a clash of styles, it's a fight of intricacies and little steps and movements. It could be a stinker because they could cancel each other out. They're that brilliant to do it. But I think Bud gets it. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them or two of them do go down, because I think there's going to be an awful lot of short stepping. There might be a little bit of herky jerky from Bud. He might get caught coming in. But I think Bud gets it. But it's such an intriguing fight. And I just can't wait to see how this fight goes. We might see rounds 1 to 3 a certain style, then it flip up a little bit, and the mid rounds might be different to the early rounds, and then we might see it catch light at the end if it's close, because both of them know how to put their foot on the gas.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if one guy gets the other one hurt, how hard they're going to go after it, Justin. And the one thing I'll say, like recently, like you'd have to say that Crawford has more of a killer instinct when going when having somebody hurt than Canelo, but it didn't used to be that way. Canelo is kind of evolved into a one-shot guy rather than the combination puncher we used to know, Justin. So I don't know. What are you thinking? If someone's hurt, is someone really going to gun for it, or are we going to have more standoff moments like have happened with Canelo, where he just tries to give him to back off and so be it?
I think one of them will go for it in a fight like this. Especially Canelo. I think he would go for it. I don't see any reason why they would like back off, and especially Crawford, because I don't think people expect him to hurt Canelo. So I truly believe if he hurts Canelo, he's not going to sit back and try to, be careful. I think he'll completely go for it. I don't think he's going to – that's not his mentality to step back and like, I hurt him and I don't want to open up too much. I think he would open up more than Canelo would, if that answers the question. I think if Crawford gets him hurt, he would go for it more than Canelo would go for it.
Yeah, and that's Rob. Canelo has seemed so comfortable to let people off the hook, whereas Crawford just has no interest in letting you off the hook. He smells blood in the water and he goes for it. Crawford is one of the best finishers in boxing, whereas Canelo used to be one of the best finishers in boxing.
Yeah, I would say Canelo is a top finisher too. Crawford is like there's blood in the water and it's a shark, like, because as soon as he gets you hurt, that's it, you're fucking gone, like. And he's ice cold as well. Like, he's got really, really good boxing IQ. He knows when to step off. He knows when to walk you onto him. His technique is perfect. He's strong. He'll grit it out if he has to. But yeah, if he gets you hurt, you're in for a long night, like, because he is a killer. But he's a killer at 168 pounds. I mean, I don't know. He's 38 years of age. I'm with the romance of it too, but I'm a fucking realist as well, like, that way. Although Victor Conte may have a fucking good outcome in this fight, like, that way.
Could you imagine?
In unbelievable shape, and he hasn't had to cut weight, like, probably for the fucking only the second time in his career, like.
And the height difference, about the same height, so that's not really.
Yeah.
Reach is no difference.
Reach
isn't
that.
Reach.
Nope.
Could you imagine though what Crawford's legacy would be if he stops Canelo in the Raiders Stadium?
God.
I mean, where would it? I don't even know where he would go if he was able to stop him in front of that many people in front of the world.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Or where he would go.
I don't know like how the numbers work or anything, but that's one of those things when you're talking like career is over kind of thing, that like Terence Crawford, if he wins, period, like he's a top 25 all-time great for me. It's just one of those things I got to say. But but if he was to knock out Canelo in that victory, it's one of those things where you might move him a couple of steps higher, even in that discussion, which doesn't seem like a lot. But when you get into like the top 25 greatest boxers in the history of this sport, that's a fucking stacked list of talent.
Crawford's in it. Both these guys, I think, they're in the argument that you could put them in any era and they'd be in good fights. Correct. And be competitive at any era. I don't think that's in dispute. Like, I think they've both got that credit in the bank. I think we're in a weird space in boxing where, you have the likes of Darren Till and Carl Froch could potentially have a fight and make a ton of money. You have Mike Tyson's going to fight Floyd Mayweather and potentially make a lot of money, and Tommy Fury and these guys.
That is so fucking stupid, Rob. I forgot about that. Damn it.
All this shit that's happening on Netflix, you've got your Jake Paul fighting. Who the fuck is he fighting? It's supposed to be next.
Gervonta Davis.
Hank Davis, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, for fuck's sake, man. Do you know what I mean? So we've got these kind of raw spectacles, and then you've got one side of the box that says this is outrageous, like I says, this is disgusting, and it's bringing the sport into disrepute. Someone's going to get hurt, yada yada. And then you got a load of box of people saying, "Well, these fellas are never going to get a chance to make that money ever again." So I think as fans, we obviously have to accept a lot of bullshit. There has to be a fine line where it's acceptable and palatable for us. And I think this card just fits that bill, doesn't it? Like, because we know what it is. It is a cash grab. There's two weight classes being jumped up here. There's two fellas 38 on the way out the door. Two, um, undisputed Hall of Famers. Probably one or two as the best in the sport for over 10 years. So it's more acceptable, isn't it, when it's something like this rather than just a complete fucking farce. Like,
Yeah, and it wasn't that long ago. And I mean, there's all sorts of things we could look back. Hindsight's 2020, and should Oscar have gone in the ring? But it was less than 20 years ago. And it's amazing to say it was that long when Larry Merchant opened up about, hey, why can't Manny Pacquiao fight Oscar De La Hoya? And it happened. And a legend was born. Fortunately for Manny Pacquiao, he was a young enough man to really be able to profit off of that moving forward. But why can't we have these funky dreams once in a while? Roy Jones went for the heavyweight championship of the world. If he would have retired, he would have been in the fucking argument as top 10 all time. There would have been no tarnishing of the legacy kind of thing. James Toney wouldn't have said, I'm going to keep eating and not exercising much, and I'm going to go and compete at heavyweight. And he went up there and he stopped fucking Evander Holyfield. And they can say, oh, James Toney was on the juice. Well, Evander probably was too. All fair as well, right?
Well, apparently James Toney was 200 pounds in high school when he used to play American football, and he had to boil down to 160. So that's quite a weight cut. Maybe he was a natural heavyweight all along.
Yeah, well, Evander wasn't allegedly. He got deliveries to his house.
Yeah.
Who is that brilliant, absolutely amazing cruiserweight that Tony went on to beat? What was his name?
Vasily Yurov.
Oh my God!
That was a great fight.
That's one of my favorite fights ever to watch. Oh my!
If you'd have seen Tony at middleweight and say he's going to go and beat him at cruiserweight, you'd have thought no chance.
And Yurov was a scary. If Yurov had been around, maybe 10 years later, he would have made up that Kovalev Golovkin fucking trilogy.
I totally agree.
Eastern European dominance. He was brilliant. But one of the best things about watching that fight back is Manny Stewart's commentary in the last round. He's like, "Oh, he got him! Bing, bam, boom! He got."